Good afternoon. There we are. Let's see here. How are we all doing today? Good. All right. Okay. Let's see. It is noon. There were quite a few on the sign-up sheet, so we'll give them a moment. Just so you all know, we are Facebook Live. So if you want to share with the entire Facebook world, just be aware of that. Let's see. Okay. While we're waiting for others to show, did you all have a chance to take a look at the website and some of the details behind the amphitheater? Yeah, okay. Okay. We'll go through, most of the majority of them here. There is also the full Parks and Recreation Master Plan that was put together by the county. There's only like a page or two that references this particular project. That being said, there's also an RFP that was put out in hopes to find somebody to design and eventually install this amphitheater. So, all right. Okay, so let's see. I think that's Stephen behind Holly. Is that Stephen? So, good afternoon.
Oh, no, let me unmute you. Okay, now you can talk. Hey, how are you?
Swell. All right. Okay. That thing. Okay. Sorry, we'll start on Savannah time, so we'll give them a couple minutes. Okay. That. Holly, anybody else from your office there in the room? I know you're expecting a number.
Tara.
Right, Tara Jennings should be joining. Corey Harper, that's in that neon shirt. He's also from Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
Karen actually from somebody's just emailed me. Let me pull that up.
Karen's having some issues. She's trying to figure out how to get logged in.
Okay.
You sent her another invite, Holly?
I just set my email. I see that.
Okay.
Can you send her another
I
invite?
had trouble too. That's why I came here.
Yeah. That's why Steve came here. Hold on. Let me send her the link again.
Yeah, our Outlook's kind of having its own little
Oh, yeah.
ideas today.
Well, I found out the hard way that Outlook these days, something happened to where a lot of the hyperlinks that open through Outlook will try to, in fact, download a file in order to browse it. But the only way it can open it is through Explorer. So you have to reset a few of the configuration, because I have a lot of emails and I want to view in the browser because the images don't come through. I couldn't figure out why does it want to keep on downloading the file. But yeah, Outlook can be a little finicky sometimes.
It's been asking me to update my Zoom for like weeks and I haven't been doing it. And yesterday, for some reason, it convinced me to do it. And so, because I had 2 meetings yesterday and I did it. And then I was like, oh man, I hope it works again tomorrow.
Yeah, amen.
But
Okay.
all seems to be well.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully the others will chime in here. Oh, there's Karen. And then again, the meeting is being recorded, so it'll be available afterwards. So Corey, that was your question from before. Okay, so got that. Okay, so first of all, I do want to share a few items in the chat for you. You have there the reference page on the website that I suspect most of you have already reviewed because you're here and you're interested in this amphitheater. A lot of this we're going to go through today, with the exception of a couple of items that are relevant but not for today's discussion. We'll try to get some of the comments and feedback today and have a nice discussion. If there is anything that you want to share now, later, or privately, you can go back to the same website page, or I shared the same link with you in order to collect your feedback. And then, of course, most of you already have my email information, but if you do not, then my information is in the chat for quick reference. Okay, so I am a professor at SCAD, and I have learned the hard way about Zoom meetings. So in terms of how I want to proceed here, we're going to try to maintain something resembling Zoom etiquette. So I'm going to ask that we keep our microphones muted, or if you're on the phone, muted until we get to the Q&A. And then when we do get to the Q&A or the discussion phase of this, then we either raise the hand virtually or just raise your hand visually so I can see you on the camera, so I can call on you in order to kind of be able to direct the conversation instead of having everybody talk over one another. Okay. Okay, so moving on. Oops. All right, back to this. Okay. So first up, kind of who's here and who's part of the project in some way, shape, or form. So we do have from Chatham County, a number of folks are currently online. Some are in the same room as others. We have Tara Jennings from the Office of Strategic Planning, Stephen Proper, he is the Parks and Recreation Director, Holly Holdsworth, Facilities Manager, Corey Harper, he's the J. Harper on the screen, Assistant Maintenance Superintendent for Parks and Recreation, and last but not least, Karen Sons, our Coastal Regional Commission. I am Patrick Kelsey. I'm also the founder and executive director for the Arts and Culture Alliance of Chatham County, and I'll be serving as your facilitator today. I do need to insert here just a bit of self-promotion. If you've not heard of this alliance before, well, that's bad branding on my part, so I need to work on that. For the moment, I'll just go ahead and share that the Alliance is here to promote and advance the arts and cultural industry in Chatham County, to advocate for pro-arts and culture public policy change, and to serve as a platform to provide the industry a voice of betterment for economic impact, job growth, quality of life, education, and just overall, community creativity. So I also need to thank Georgians for the Arts for their support and providing our video conferencing platform today. Parks and Recreation has prepared a short, I think it's like 2.5-minute video kind of summarizing the project and getting a good sense of where this is going. So if you'll bear with me, I actually want to make sure, I'm going to stop this because it may or may not be sharing audio. Yeah, share audio. Okay.
The best is yet to come.
Considered by many as a gem in Chatham County, Tom Triplett Park is part of the historic Savannah-Ogeechee Barge Canal Trail and Pooler and holds its own place in history.
Just very excited about what we have here right now and what we're going to be adding to this park.
Originating from humble beginnings, the 300-acre footprint in West Chatham provides residents and visitors a host of outdoor activities. A jogging trail offers stunning views of the picturesque lake that is set as a backdrop for memorable gatherings for those picnicking, fishing, or taking a casual stroll.
When I first ran, I ran on that premise of we were treated like the redheaded stepchild. I think it's pretty clear that we're no longer treated like the redheaded stepchild.
County staff took a closer look at the park's master plan and through some creative brainstorming, developed a way to make a great park even better.
One of the opportunities in 2019 was this Georgia Council for the Arts grant, which we thought, we have this wonderful master plan here at Tom Triplett Park, but we don't have enough funding to really get it all done, and the amphitheater is like the last piece of that.
A rendering of the amphitheater could look similar to this, and that's not all staff says you can expect.
You got this multi-purpose field which kids can come and play, and you can have picnics out here, and also when we get this grant for the amphitheater, we can have music here, art shows, or what have you.
Staff says the build-out is about $400,000, with 25% of that hinging on grant funding. As for when you'll be able to enjoy your first event,
I'd say maybe 2 years if we are successful in getting the funding. The application would go in later this summer, and I think their turnaround was pretty quick before, and then we'd have to see where we end up.
a boat ramp, more restrooms, a new playground, and easier visitor access will complement the new expansion project, a project budding to accommodate the community's rapid expansion that will etch the history and charm of Tom Triplett Park for generations to come.
We're very excited. We think it's a great opportunity for us here in our community.
It's an amazing day for West Chatham, and we need the public's input, and we're going to keep making this park the best around.
Okie dokie. So the first question I asked when I heard about this project was, where is Tom Triplett Park? The park itself is located within the Pooler city limits. From downtown, from City Hall, it's about 8 miles as a crow flies, or about 20 minutes. It does have pretty easy access from Highway 80 or 95. And the park itself, it's a large park. I had no idea how big it was. A few quick aerial views here, just to kind of get the park perspective, if you've not been there before. So the amphitheater itself is going to be in close proximity to some other park activities, such as the tennis courts, jogging paths, freshwater fishing, even some dog exercise area. If you're into disc golf, etc. It also has lots of pavilions that one can rent. So right now, I think up front with the amphitheater and all the other park offerings, I for one could easily see a full day trip for family or groups. They can enjoy the outdoors and finish the day at sunset with some performance. So now we're just kind of lowering our elevation a little bit, and you can get a kind of a better sense of the area of where the amphitheater might be located. And as you can tell already, I mean, again, the field that it is going to be built in, it's a massive field. This amphitheater is not, your full-blown Coliseum. It's a little bit smaller, but with the central performance hub, there is a lot of space to work with. So moving on to the actual facility, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, aside from other parks and recreation facilities, the amphitheater would become the county's third arts and cultural asset. it currently owns and operates the Ralph Mark Gilbert Civil Rights Museum, located at the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Gwinnett, as well as the Mother Matilda Beasley House Museum, located near the intersection of Broad and Gordon in Mother Matilda Beasley Park. That opened, I think, 3 years ago. It's a small little house that was, I think, moved from its original location to where it's at now. But that came online here a few years ago, and the amphitheater will be the third. Architects have begun to assemble some of the area drawings or renderings to get an idea of how all of this is going to come into play. And as you can see, there is a lot of paths, a lot of driving area, roads to get from the front, upper right-hand corner, depends on your perspective. We have the park entrance off of I think 80, and then there's a long little trek back to the grounds there where the amphitheater will be located. But man, it is scenic. It is scenic. I was pleasantly surprised about the drive through the park. So the basics of the project itself, Chatham County is designing, installing, and planning to operate its first outdoor amphitheater, scheduled to open, as you said, in about 2023, pending the funding, of course. I'll also inject here that this particular public forum is in fact contributing to the county's application to Georgia Council for the Arts for possible capital or facility funding. So fingers crossed that the panelists behind the applications see the value in this project as much as I do. Another perspective of this, a little further out. All of these drawings, by the way, are on the website, so you can look at them in much more detail and much closer, because unless you have really good eyesight, this is hard to look at even for me on this screen that I have. Regardless, it is early in the design process, but the amphitheater and the surrounding area are expected to have a parking capacity of 300, with an additional 200 slots or parking spaces nearby, a short walking distance. And right now, audience capacities of up to 900, depends on how things play out, up to about 1,500 people. So quite a few people can get back there and enjoy something very comfortably. So if you did not attend the unveiling of this project back in April, you may not fully grasp the vastness of the space. The amphitheater itself is an open air facility. And when I attended, and my background is in the performing arts, education and professional career before coming to SCAD was all in theater. But when I attended this event, I saw a lot of potential. When I was there and seeing the space, and afterward thinking about the space, with proper flooring, which is going to be important, easy for dance, music, readings with the proper equipment. It's vast enough for local artist markets to come in and actually have a stage to work from, and the space surrounding that for the artists to promote their work. Maybe even we can talk the county into allowing some either temporary or permanent public art installations in the fields and surrounding areas. And last but not least, simply outdoor festivals. And again, there is enough space so you can have your festival and plenty of room for the food trucks. So lots of potential that I see from my perspective. So that's kind of the project in a nutshell. And so what I want to do is actually stop sharing here for a moment. Okay, so this again is a project that is still being thought through from the brick and mortar facility perspective, the operations perspective, the equipment perspective, the programming perspective. So, from my perspective, if I may say that again, now's the time to really chime in to make sure that, whoever is viewing this later and whoever's on the call today, that it's a facility, it's a space that will be heavily sought after. It'll be well used year round, not just for that one thing during a cool month, but activities all year round. And so all that being said, we are here for a discussion. So, I will open the floor up then to you all. And ideally, you've already looked at the stuff online before in greater depth. But right now, does anybody have any immediate thoughts about this facility that you want to share? I'm gonna pick on Brad for a moment. When I was out there between the Philharmonic and Jazz, Paula couldn't make it today, so I can't pick on her. The acoustics may be questionable for some of the performances, but having an outdoor amphitheater such as this with proper, equipment and stuff, how do you feel about the Philharmonic trekking out to Cooler for this kind of outdoor space?
First of all, yeah, I think it's wonderful, the idea of acoustics are not an issue for things like Jazz Fest or the Philharmonic and everything. I'll talk about that in a second. But I think having, multiple venues like this across the county is wonderful. The orchestra is actually we're making an effort, and I know some of our cultural partners as well are making an effort to go out beyond just the historic district and get across, all of our region, which is Pooler being the fastest growing portion of that, as well as Richmond Hill. We're looking to expand out, and things like this allow for larger gatherings that make it available, which is awesome. As far as, like I said, as acoustics and whatnot, anytime that organizations, that performing organizations are going to be out in something like this, there'll be sound reinforcement, and that won't, acoustics are not an issue. I do have a couple, my own notes and questions about some of the technical side of things, which I'm sure would be shared by Jazz Fest, by Music Fest, all of that, but I don't know if that's the time now.
Nope. Now is the time, because that's on the list of things to talk about. That's going to be a big one. That's going to be a big one too.
Okay. So again, first of all, I think it's, the idea of having an amphitheater out there, in Pooler, I say, over in Pooler, is wonderful. There's a few things that I see. First of all, the size of it looks to be, good. So you guys know, like an orchestra, we look to fit on minimum about 40 feet wide by 36 feet deep. 30 feet deep is what we usually try to fit on. That's kind of our minimum when we're not distancing requirement. So it looks good. There does seem to be, looking at some of the like the RFP compared to the architectural renderings, there's some number of differences. I'm not quite sure on what the actual size is, but looking through the architectural rendering side of it, it looks, size-wise, look great. In the RFP, I did notice one of the things that we have to do because of the amount of sound reinforcement and lighting and all of those sort of things, power draw is a major thing. And so my only real concern as far as that within what I can see at the moment, that the Phil would have issue or have to overcome, is the idea of if power is being run from like an adjacent bathroom and just have a few outlets, we'd trip everything in the world. So anything that would require all that, the sound reinforcement, lighting, every part of that would need a legitimate, pretty significant power source available at the amphitheater. So that's something. Okay. The only other thing which I have a question about, as far as if you're like looking for the Philharmonic, Jazz Fest, Music Festival, Voice Fest, any of those things to go out that way, and be able to use this is the parking is the one thing that I have a question about, because that's always, an issue for our patrons. If we have to walk, even if it's a beautiful walk, parking would be an issue. And something this size, I would imagine that the county would look to bring, thousands of people to fill a park like this size. Like if we were to come out, the orchestra, speaking for us, if we were coming out that way, we would look to have a minimum of, hopefully 2,000 to 4,000 people to fill that space, which, parking is a significant issue as well. So they're kind of my just first glances as far as what an orchestra would have some challenges with. But again, the idea of having that out there and being closer to one of the areas that's growing significantly in our region, I think is awesome.
Yeah, the one of the notes that I also heard from was the infrastructure itself, whether it be the electrical or just the water supply, as it's might be needed for certain activities. I don't know. Let me ask you this question: for Forsyth Park, are the power supply needs, are they sufficient at Forsyth, or do you need to supplement?
It's for what we run there. It has been sufficient. It's on the edge.
Okay.
We all have the thought of, oh man, we're going to trip a fuse in the middle of this. It's close there. I also do know there are a lot of some of the other things that come in do run generators and things, and so they have their own power supply as well. But yeah, Forsyth it's close.
Okay. Well, that's going to be, I think, one big note to do better or to expand. Corey, do you want to chime in with that? I kind of put you on the spot. Sorry.
No, that's no problem. At this point, the biggest question I would reiterate to all of y'all is, I have three-phase power, and when you say, the RFP states that there's, power at the bathroom, well, basically what that means is Georgia Power has pulled three-phase power to where the power supply is going to be. There's a transformer that's actually sitting at the back of those restrooms. So when we're in the building phase of this, really at this point, what I would need to know, or what we would need to know as Parks and Rec, is what is the power consumption, or what's the power needs. So whenever we build that electrical panel, that we have really overage of what we need. It's not a question of, what do we have? It's really, the question is, what do we need to pull this off?
Yeah, excellent. I'm also taking a look at our Facebook Live conversations too. Kurt, I'll get to you in a second. Let me jump over here for a moment. So this is not 100% final design, and it's still in the works. Is that safe to say? Okay, so there's that answer there. And then also a question of, given that this is not the final design, could it or would it be envisioned to have a stage extension available so that it improves the overall sight lines? I mean, some organizations could probably come in and build it themselves if they really need it, kind of like a theater in the, not full round, but theater in the round kind of situation. But is that something that could be considered? You don't have to answer today, but that is going to be one of the questions from our Facebook Live participants. So I'll go and continue through these. Kurt, what did you have for us?
Thank you, Patrick. I'm glad that Brad brought up the parking. That was the number one on my list, with the amount of people that this venue could potentially hold. I mean, we got to always think about that, and that always is problematic. But some of the devil in the detail issues of an amphitheater, of course, you don't want to have to deal with seating, so people want to be able to have picnics and lay blankets down on the ground. So you have some gardening and landscape things that you've got to definitely think about. It usually drives quite a bit of cost, but people want to sit down on a nice lawn. The only other thing I saw Patrick from, and Patrick and I know each other well and have backgrounds in performing arts, is that little room behind the amphitheater that's called storage/changing. Performing artists frequently get left out, especially like restroom needs and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you talk about the Philharmonic chorus, dance, people actually have to have power in that room. You have to have a place for, to do that green room kind of exchange and restroom facilities. Now, if that's not available, as you think about this amphitheater becoming popular and growing, then some kind of an ingress and egress for, royal restrooms, trailers, caterers. We're a film city as well, so we know all about, bringing in the dressing rooms if needed and stuff. But kind of thinking about your plot of land and how you get those kind of units in and out. But I will tell you, I mean, it's something that I've seen in my entire career is, there's no place for a performer to go to the restroom. It's kind of a problem. So a green room that at least has like running hot and cold water in a restroom is something of importance. I understand it's a county facility and in a park environment, but just something to give some thought to. Thank you, Patrick.
Do you think that, Kurt, do you think that if that was indeed kind of kept where it's at and everything else, whether there were, I'll throw out there, modular structures behind that, either there or if it's a larger production, they may have to get trucked in. But definitely that's something to think about, especially for anything larger than a couple of performers.
Well, and as Brad, and I'm just, you guys know, I'm from Southern California and we live our life in the world of amphitheater. Was just there a few weeks ago with the Hollywood Bowl. So this is nowhere a Hollywood Bowl, but the point is the number one thing on my list was, so Brad already touched on it, was parking and then power, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, if this is going to be a venue for somebody to get up there with a stool and a guitar, that's one thing, but you're starting to talk about, an orchestra and choruses and dance and things like that. And, all of us want to blue sky the dream of this giant lawn filled with people. I absolutely love that idea. And I've been a supporter of needing to have more venues in the city and county area. So by all means, I completely back this, but just think about the devil in the details and some of those pieces.
Okay. For folks over on the Facebook Live, some of the earlier comments, if you could reshare those, for whatever reason, Mark Zuckerberg is not letting me get to the earlier comments. And I know, Jen, you had a good question to ask from before. While we're waiting for that, let me ask this question. Again, thinking out loud here with, Kurt was, previously very involved with the Savannah Ballet Theater. So we have that kind of more contemporary dance. Then you bring in the Irish Fest and you bring in the Irish dancing. You have two vastly different types of dancing and needs. I don't know what is being planned for the stage itself to where it could accommodate dancers. Corey, do you already have an idea about that?
I'm sorry, repeat that question again.
In terms of the flooring for the stage, will there be consideration given to where there is the give that dancers would need? Whether we're going to go with something to the level of contemporary dance, ballet, etc., to Irish dance dancing. Again, they're all going to have different needs. A concrete floor wouldn't really do anybody that much good. And I think with Irish Fest, when it's over in the park, I think in most cases they bring in their own stage, and it does have that spring. It does have the give, so it doesn't hurt the dancers. But I don't know what's being planned for this.
I guess, and Steve can chime in on this one. Our initial thoughts were that it would be a concrete floor, and if somebody was going to have a special event, then they could bring in, cover that floor with, they have the portable floor, and they can bring in and cover that floor with whatever. I know your earlier question was, or someone's question was, can the stage be, extended? Well, we're hoping in this design, whenever we build that stage, that if someone wanted to extend the front of it with a portable staging, that they can come in and actually extend and make what they need. That field is plenty large enough to extend the front of that facility. And I do know, just not to chime in, some of the other questions that was asked was, for the restrooms or, changing areas for people who's come in, like orchestra and stuff like that. When we initially looked at this site to put this on there, we did look at not taking the amphitheater and putting it to the very edge of our property line. So there's space behind it to where, yes, there would be access for, portable restrooms or portable changing areas or things like that to be able to come in. We are, and I'll agree with all of you, we are trying to make this build, when we do this, to try to cover all our bases. So yes, we are trying to pay attention to those details because we know those are very important.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, between, even Irish Fest, for example, that's a great space and it could handle a lot. Brad?
Hey, random question, might be in the plans and I missed it, but which direction will the stage be facing? Because many of us have played staring into the sun, or the audience staring into the sun. It might be in there, but that's something to consider as well.
So ultimately, the way that the stage is setting is, it is facing, I would say it was facing south, correct, Steve? If I'm not,
Yeah, I
it's
believe
south.
that's
So
correct. I believe that's
when we
correct.
We looked
initially
at it.
looked at it, we wanted to make sure that the sun was not going to be a factor
That's right.
either in the afternoon or in the
Exactly.
morning. That was one of our other factors that we did look at this.
Right. Okay.
Well, I think the other part to that, just for clarification, which may be an understatement, but it depends on what time of day you're doing it and what season you're also hosting the event in, right? So when we were out there in April, we saw it one way, but if you go out there in September, it might be a little bit different. So we are keeping that in mind, but I think it was coming down to the side, so it wasn't in the face of either the participant or the performer.
Okay. A number of comments over here. Bring in production consultants. And I think you already had one on board before. But a couple comments here about just making sure that the production folks, I would recommend that the production managers that are working with the Philharmonic, working with Jazz Festival, even working with the book festival, since Eric is here, are being brought in for this discussion, if they haven't already, or if they haven't already chimed in on their own, to make sure that the space is going to meet the Philharmonic's needs. It may be too small for certain things, but there can be smaller things, right? Let me see what I got over here. And there's only one entrance to the park. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
That's correct.
Okay. So I guess the traffic could be a bit challenging. Okay. Merrick?
Hi. Just a question. I have a feeling, and this goes back a little bit to the comment about this not being the Hollywood Bowl. It's also not a venue that I'm familiar with, the Saratoga Performing Arts Center in Saratoga, New York. But is there any thought being given to raking the seating area at all, or is it just going to be flat?
I believe our determination was it's going to stay flat because we're still going to use it as a multi-purpose facility as well. Is that correct, Steve?
That is correct. That is correct. It'll be flat.
It's got a little bit of a
crown, but
there's
not
a little
much.
bit of crowning to it just to keep it from flooding.
Right.
But yeah, definitely flat in response to.
Now, however, that doesn't mean that we can't, because I know our plan right now is what to raise if I'm not mistaken, RFP said we'd raise the amphitheater floor up 3 feet. I mean, and again, this is in the planning stage. So if we need to raise that up higher to get a better view, then that's something that we need to be able to consider. Really, it's just a consensus of what, now's the time to voice the opinions.
How high is the stage, or how high is the stage that's being planned right now then?
The floor would be set at 3 feet.
3 feet. Okay. Okay.
And I think the sidewalls were 10 feet. I'll have to go back and look at RFP. I believe the sidewalls were at 10 feet.
Okay. And it probably couldn't tell on the drawings. This, excuse me, the drawings on the screen today. The width of the proscenium at the front versus the back. Can you share that?
In the drawings, in the plans, there's a taper. So it would taper from, it depends on what route we're looking. I know we're in discussion. Steve, you can chime in, please. But I think it was a 10-foot taper from front to back. So regardless, if we did, 120 feet in the front, it would taper 10 feet to the back. If we did 100 feet, whatever there would be a 10-foot taper, basically is what the design is. And that's still, again, that's why I guess that's one of the reasons why we're having this roundtable discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Making sure that it is indeed, large enough and flexible enough for users to come in and keep you all busy. Looking over here, same comments as before. Okay, production consultants. Quite a few comments about bringing in production truck. One second, Kurt. Production trucks. Given the temperamental weather we can have sometimes, cars are one weight, but then you bring in the production trucks, or what was you said before, rural restrooms. You get a bunch of those coming in. Where will there be any paths for these trucks that can handle the load? Anything that will be able to accommodate the larger vehicles besides just basic, grassy area?
Well, for the most part, right now it's asphalted all the way up to the restroom area where the amphitheater is going. I believe it's in our plan to gravel all the way up to where the amphitheater would be, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Steve? It should be gravel like right at the edge of it.
Yeah, I think you are correct on that.
Back behind it,
Right.
like on
Yeah,
that
that's
edge?
correct. And then once we build that, I mean, that would be very minimal cost at this point in order really to gravel behind it, if that's what we needed to do for, heavy equipment parking for, for setup and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. Kurt, you had something too?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the aerial plans, you guys. Another thing to consider is this is after sunset, some lighting. I know that we've had some issues with even Forsyth Park. Everyone sets up their picnic and then there's concert show. Things are over, the sun has set, and like it's pitch black out there. And in that environment, we're in a city urban scape where you can see the roads and stuff. But here, as I look at this aerial plan, one of these slides just showing the plot of land. I mean, it's pretty isolated. So got to think about sunset and how we light, light an area and stuff with that wooded area.
We have already got lights already installed by Georgia Power that's surrounding the field.
Oh, perfect. All right.
Okay.
And they're on a timer, or is that a switch situation? Because you don't want to run
It's
them.
a manual switch. Yes, sir. It's a manual switch.
All right, perfect. No,
We're trying. I promise we're trying.
No, that's really good. I mean, I now know people that go to Forsyth Park and they're like, don't forget your lantern because the sun's dead. You want to clean up after yourself and you literally can see nothing.
Yeah.
So no, that's really a great idea. I think as I just now looking through all these aerial plans, which are great, Patrick. Thanks for putting that link on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really just about, access. And since it's not urban like Forsyth Park where you're parking on the streets and walking in, like, how do you get there? I guess that's my kind of where Brad started out. That's the number one, like, how do you actually say, oh, we've got 900 people coming in, how do they get in and out and all that?
Right.
But other than that, gosh, this is a great piece of land.
Yeah.
My only other comment is there's right behind there, you guys, I think on that first slide, it shows the property belongs to Georgia Port Authority. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, it's near, it's right across the other side of the trees, isn't it?
Is that just foresty area that belongs to Georgia Port, or has that been developed, that land? I can't remember.
No, it's forest area, and our property line really, we went back and looked, and it's the picture that y'all see is kind of, I won't say it's to see. We have a lot more property behind that area.
Okay.
There is a very decent buffer.
Okay, because out this picture, you're right, makes it look like you're sitting right on top of their property line. Okay.
One thing that Kurt brought up too, come up a couple of times, let's move over to restrooms for a moment. Besides bringing in a bunch of modular, what's being planned for that?
In y'all's photos, you see there are already some restroom facilities that are actually already built, brand new facility that's built there at the site. But in order to accommodate 900 to 1,500 people, you'd have to bring in more restroom facilities.
Sure.
So are you talking about on the plan, that first picture under aerial, over to the right, it shows some buildings, some off buildings. Is that the facility for a restroom?
That is correct. The restroom's already built. That's already there.
Oh, okay.
They're actually installing all the lift stations and everything to it now. So
Next to the playground, if that's shown on that plan, playground and then the restroom, and right at the top of the parking area.
Yeah, I see. It's like on the picture, it just looks like a white fenced area, but.
Okay. For I guess one more question from me for the restrooms. Yeah, when you get to 900 to 1,500 people or more, you're going to have to supplement. That's kind of a hands down, no matter what happens. With what is there right now, how large of an event would you have? Sorry, at what point would a company need to bring in their own to supplement what's already there? We're talking about 500. You have to supplement.
I don't have that answer. We could get that answer for you. I don't have that answer for you because there's engineered ratios of what they do is how many stalls based on how many people. Right. I don't know that number in front of me, but I can get that to you so that way you can post it.
Okay, yeah, great, because that would be good to know in terms of what the companies need to bring in with them. And that being said, let's move over to what, if anything, is going to be able to be provided by the county. One of the things that I recall back in April, and a question came up here, was about the chairs. Does the Philharmonic or Jazz, do they need to bring in their chairs, or will there be 1,000 chairs available for them to pull out and set up?
They need to bring their chairs in. Yeah, we don't have that many chairs, and we don't want to set those out. So it'll be similar to Forsyth, where they would have to bring their chairs in.
Okay. Okay. So we'll get to a threshold, much like Forsyth, in terms of importing the chairs, bringing the chairs. At a certain point, we're bringing in the restrooms. What other equipment, what other production equipment is being planned to be available to the users, if any?
I think at this point, what we've only planned is really supplying the power and the facility needs, as in for structural needs for them to utilize. I do know that I know in the planning, if I'm not mistaken, Steve, is that, we are planning for, putting the racks into the ceiling so they can mount lighting and stuff like that for stage lighting for different events. Try to wire to where in some of the pillars that there's wiring for sound So you could just plug and play into there, so you don't have so much cabling on the ground. Of granted, different organizations have different needs, so we're trying to do it as generic as possible to cover as many needs as possible. However, we're not going to be able to cover everything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, trying to do, one size fits all, it's not going to happen. And talking with some other folks too about this, there's a point where, a small company can't use it because, let's say, for argument's sake, they want to do a free, and I'll go ahead and pick on Shakespeare for a moment. They want to do some free Shakespeare in the park. It's free. But in order to have anything of an audience, it's going to they'll have to bring in the chairs, the restrooms. It depends upon, the rigging for your lighting, of course, the audio and everything else. So hopefully there can be, some consideration to where, at least in part, it can become a turnkey operation for some of the, smaller companies. When we get to, Book Fest, jazz, orchestra, maybe ballet theater, Irish Fest, they're going to have their own needs, and they'll definitely have to supplement. But I think the further along that we can, push the envelope, the less that they have to provide themselves, the more use the park will get. Over on Facebook, nothing new. Erica, if you're there, what do you think about this space for? I mean, it's going to be a little interesting, but for a book festival.
Looking at it right now, I don't see it working for us, because also we're in February, so a lot of our author sessions happen indoors in case it is cool. We've been lucky with weather over the last couple of years, but if it's all outside, and what February weather can be iffy, that might be a problem. But this is 2 years down the road and things are changing, as we all know. So I wanted to be on here to see what possibilities there could be.
Yeah, that's maybe one of the benefits of global warming. February may be warm again.
Yeah, exactly.
Warm.
Yeah. But like today, I don't see it working for us as we are, but I want to look at it for, possibilities in the future.
Okay. So I think we kind of hit upon all the main points I want to talk about. We do have the overall facility design. Acoustics, won't be a significant issue since a lot is going to be reinforced. I guess one of the big ones in terms of funding is an overabundance of power, and then like you said, Corey, making sure power is provided further out from the stage. So you have a lot less cables that have to be run. Seating will be covered. I guess right now we're looking at a small storage space that may have to be supplemented. Dressing rooms or other areas to use and the performers prepare and whatnot. That'll probably be a good recommendation there. Right now, I know that Taya Post Theater, since they literally have no backstage, they have outside modular, buildings in order to accommodate, their performers and the like. Equipment, largely, I guess, user provided. Restrooms, we'll find out what the threshold is. Parking, it is vast, it is wide. It will take something of traffic control. So that will be, a labor expense perhaps. For the users here or the prospective users, do you have any other questions or concerns or anything else that you want to chime in with right now?
I'm happy to keep speaking for the Phil. So like you said, I was thinking about the bathrooms a little bit, and I may not be looking at the correct thing, but the facilities that are adjacent to the amphitheater or close to that, oftentimes if a performance group came in, they might actually shut that down and just have it their own exclusive area to that. So that would then, like you said, we'd have to bus in everything. So the infrastructure needs the ingress needs to be widely available. One thing that could be interesting as well, and I believe they've done this in Hilton Head with the recent park, is that if well, I know this all adds to cost, but if you're able to extend the roof a little bit farther, another 12, 15 feet past where the stage ends, that allows, if we ever wanted to, or someone ever wanted to expand the stage, you can just bring in risers and meet the level, and then you don't have to worry about it. It also creates a multi-level possibility that you could put well, if the stage is at 36 inches or whatever it is, you could also put another little riser area, which then you could also have for that as well. That also allows cover for if there are any elements that come in, a little bit of cover and all of that. That always helps. Regarding the power, the consumption needs and all of that, as I'm sure you're all well aware, we are in the middle of building this all and working with all the different contractors for our upcoming park concert. And so since we're so close in touch with them, and they're going to be the men and women who will be running the tech side for anything out in Pooler as well, most likely, I'm happy, Patrick, to talk to them and say, hey, what do you need? What are our basic things? Relay that to you guys, and they can pass that on. So that way you're also you know who's going to be working it. You guys aren't chasing down meaningless numbers and everything. That might be the best thing, and just get them involved, and then you can ask direct questions of them if you need as well, rather than going through third parties like us. But I'm happy to do that. I'll be glad to.
That'd be great. And I know some comments on the online here are saying kind of the same thing. So that's great. Yeah, one comment on online here. Great project, but when we're all looking at the smaller to mid-size organizations, it is going to become cost prohibitive on a variety of fronts. So they may be, the smaller companies may be limited to the daytime events because of the expense of lighting and things like that, it adds up pretty fast. So I guess in the design process, the design process as well as the equipping process, again, whatever can be done in order to not cater to everybody, because you can't do that, but make sure that the smaller companies can use the space with a nominal expense, a nominal cost, instead of having to bring in everything themselves. So I think the more that's provided, the more use you'll get out of it. Anybody else? Holly.
Brad, you mentioned kind of some size parameters for Philharmonic, which I think was really helpful for y'all's kind of stage requirements. I think you said 40 feet by 36 feet. Obviously, that's without when you're not social distancing, and that's the minimum. Does anyone else on the call have any other kind of size requirement needs? And I also like the idea of the extended, roof line coverage, so that if you have that stage, we had the idea that you could extend the stage, but the roof line, that's a really good idea. So I appreciate that one. But anyone else have any thoughts about specific to size for their organizations?
We'll have to reach out and to the other larger users and get that too.
And as well as I know Brad's going to get their power consumption, as well as these other people putting in for what their thoughts on power consumption would be, so we can kind of plan ahead for that as well.
One more additional thing is that the potential to have the sides, like, I don't know if you just put eye hooks or something like that, to be able to canvassed or tented in, again, the idea of keeping elements out potentially, just something to do easily to do that. I mean, like I said, it could just be eye hooks that you hang on to that we would obviously, or whomever would supply, but the ability to easily close in the sides of it as well, I think would allow some more use.
Now, when you say closing the sides, and I guess this is from a construction and a Are you taking just temporary closing in, like curtain wise, being able to hang curtains up to temporary close? Or are you talking about a rigid sidewall or?
I'm thinking about tenting. Like you hang a tent, so if the sun happens to be setting, or if it's a light rain, we can just put that up, take it down, easily removable.
Mhm. Brad, speaking of that, because currently there is indeed a lack of space for performers, if they were using, let's say, the front half of the stage and the back half was not being necessarily used, and that could be partitioned off with heavy drapes, you would have yourself a full area for the performers to utilize and not have to bring in modular units. So thanks for bringing that up, Brad. There's a couple questions about rigging. Right now, depends on where you're at, can bring in the scissor lifts or the cherry pickers in order to do, some basic rigging, or, super tall ladders, etc. The rigging system that is currently being planned, it's not going to be within the scope of this facility to be motorized, but will it be able to be lowered and raised in order to make the installation of the audio and the lighting equipment easier to install, faster to install, and not require so much ladders and lifts and everything else.
I believe we have talked about it, and to the extent, yes, we were talking about having it where it was motorized to be able to, at least the rack to be able to come down and up. But again, that would be, we would supply the power there, and that would have been a future addition was to be able to add that rack so it could be lowered and dropped. Biggest thing, of course, like everyone knows, it's funding.
Sure. Because, some organizations that bring in the trusses for light and everything else, they'll have all that. But when it's only looking at a smaller mid-sized company, having to pick up the expense of just having, a very tall ladder, could begin to become somewhat problematic, because it's not something that they would normally have to have, because the facility would already have that available. Or in this case here, having a motorized rigging would kind of eliminate the entire problem. So definitely something to consider.
I know in our initial concept, we talked about going ahead and having like stage lighting, as in, spotlighting and stuff like that already. Now, anything additional to that, that would be, of course, on whoever was going to use the facility.
Yeah, spotlights and stuff. Yeah, front lighting. That would be the trusses coming in and whatnot. A lot of folks are, agreeing online that definitely one thing that would help to expedite the installation of a show. So, okay, well, I think, I said, 12 to 1, it's 1:03. Does anybody else have anything that they want to share at this time? Again, there is a link to the form if you want to share any other thoughts. For online folks, I'll share here. Actually, I already did. The first comment I made provided a form to complete if you wanted to share any other thoughts that you think of either now, today, or sleep on it for a couple of days and come back to it. It'll be available through the week, and then I'll share this video and all of your feedback with the county, and then we'll see where we go with this. So anybody else have any questions we should address before we part ways today? Okay.
I don't think so, Patrick. Thanks so much for hosting. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So thank you all for attending, and like I said, we'll see what the next stage is, and hopefully, the GCA funding will come through, and that will jumpstart the entire project. All right. Thank you all. All right, take care. Bye. And for all the folks online, thank you for attending. You can contact us if you have anything else you want to share. Okay, thank you.
Patrick, I'll be in touch about, I'll email you about power stuff and everything. I'll track down Gaster, and let's just say we're keeping them busy this week with some potential changes. So I'll track down everybody and get in touch with you about that.